if you really understand your customer, you know exactly who they are, you know exactly the challenge they have, and you have the solution to help solve that problem, then the difficult part of the marketing process is just getting in front of them.
My name is Peter Sumpton, and you're listening to the Marketing Study Lab podcast, the podcast that gives you actionable marketing knowledge, getting you and your marketing in the best possible shape to be the driving force of your business for long-term success. From strategy and tactics to practical application, we've got it all covered. If you'd like to support the show, it'd be fantastic if you could leave a 5-star Apple Podcast review or get in touch. Especially if you have a burning marketing question, I'd love to chat it through with you. Email me, peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. There's a link in the show notes if you can't be bothered searching on LinkedIn. So what are we going to learn, and who's on Marketing Study Lab today? You'd think that 3 redundancies in 12 months would dampen anyone's spirits. But our guest this week, Stacey Kehoe, now runs 2 successful businesses, a property investment firm and a digital marketing agency. From this digital agency, Stacey has helped to enhance over 500 digital marketing campaigns across the UK, US and Australia. Truly global. And she's done this using 2 methods, the Game Changer method and the Content Waterfall methodology. Stacey is also the author behind Get Online, and in it, Stacey covers the 6 simple steps that you need to know to create your own digital marketing strategy. The best bit is, it was purposely made for the non-tech savvy offline business owner. And we cover all of this in this week's episode. But first, I wanted to know, Stacey, what is the worst journey you've ever been on?
My worst journey, I actually just flew from New Zealand to London last weekend, and that was a 27-hour journey, which I was thinking that one was pretty bad. But actually, I think the worst journey that kind of comes to mind is a trip that I did to Thailand a few years ago, where the reason it was a difficult journey was on arrival, I had all of my credit and debit cards blocked. And this is going back probably 8 or 9 years ago now. And you couldn't just call and have them reactivated. They would not assist in any way, shape or form. I was traveling alone, landed in Bangkok and couldn't even leave the airport because I didn't travel with any cash or anything like that. And so got totally stranded. Ended up having to borrow some money to get a taxi to the hotel that I'd booked to try and get it all sorted. And it took me about 4 days before I get access to funds. So it was just an absolute nightmare of a worst way to begin a holiday or a trip. I think that's the one that comes to mind, mostly because of the rage.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's more psychological than anything, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you just realize that, oh God, I was so unorganized, and why didn't I take out any cash prior to traveling? Or why didn't I think about, when you're traveling alone, how you might want to handle this kind of situation? I was just very, unorganized, and basically the worst thing that can happen kind of happened. So,
yeah. So when you flew 27 hours, when you finished that 27-hour trip, did you know what day it was?
Yeah. Not really, no. It takes you a while to catch up. So the reason that trip was actually probably the worst. I've traveled, I think I've done about 14 or 15 trips back and forth from New Zealand now, so it's quite a few. And this one was the worst because I've never flown this route before via Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that's not too bad because it's a 7-hour flight from London to Dubai, but then it's a 17.5-hour non-stop flight to Auckland. And that was the bit that was just not nice. So yeah, you sort of are a little bit delirious by the time you land. You don't really know what's going on, but go with the flow.
Absolutely. Let's move on to better stories, shall we say, and what's brought you to this stage of your career as founder and director of communications at Brand Lective.
So I started this agency about 8 years ago, and I guess my story leading up to that was I worked in the corporate world. So I worked in corporate travel for a number of years with financial institutions. So sort of worked with lots of different banks in Canary Wharf and Bank here in London. And prior to that was in Auckland, New Zealand, which is where I'm originally from. And I really enjoyed that role. But if everybody kind of remembers what happened in 2007, there was the world recession, and I suffered 3 redundancies in the space of 12 months.
Wow.
Which was pretty horrific and not really a fun thing to have to go through. And I guess it was at that moment where I just made a decision that actually I can't allow somebody else to dictate whether I earn an income or have somewhere to work.
Yeah.
And that was a deciding factor for me where I was like, right, I need way more control. And so I started to think about, what could I be doing? I started off being self-employed and worked as a sales representative self-employed for a couple of years. And then that sort of translated into marketing. And then eventually started my agency, which is Brand Active. So started off, just a one-man band, and then have sort of built up over the years as we've expanded. So yeah, a little bit of a change of career, but for me, it was all about control, really.
Yeah, sure. So did you say you moved from sales to more of a marketing-led or marketing role?
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, right? I am definitely more of a salesperson than a marketing person. However, the way that happened was I was working for a sales agency, started as a sales representative. But one thing that I realized working in that role was that we did a lot of offline sales. So it's all face-to-face, meeting with business owners or homeowners and having a lot of face-to-face conversations and discussions. And it was sort of around the time, so I guess this was beginning in 2008, where kind of seems crazy to say it now, but still being online and the internet and things was still kind of early days. Like it wasn't, but it kind of was. There was still a lot of small businesses that were just not online. I mean, there still is today. I think there's 1.98 million businesses in the UK and not online, don't have websites. I just find that absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was working as a sales representative, and the company that I worked for just didn't have an online presence. So nobody knew who they were. So that created an element of, it creates difficulty for the sales reps because you then have to explain the brand and what it is that you sell and what you do. And there's a lot of sort of, trying to reassure people that you're a legitimate business is a big part of that process, which is tough. So I started to work with the business, or suggested to the business owners at the time, that we really needed to build a brand so that people were aware of who we were. They agreed, and they said, we don't really know how to do this, but if you want to do it, you can. I didn't know how to do it, but I just said yes, and basically self-taught myself. So yeah, built a website, started social media, started content, and just really went full speed into it. To the point where sort of about 18 months into that, we'd built this great brand. Other people in the industry started to take notice. Competitors were reaching out to us saying, what are you doing? How are you doing it? We need help. And I was really fortunate that the boss I worked for at that time, I was on a contract basis, sort of self-employed, but obviously I worked under somebody. And they said to me, if you can help to bring up the reputation of the industry, because the sales industry doesn't have a great reputation. A lot of people like sales reps, commission, all that kind of hard sales, that kind of thing, which is not all like that. Obviously, I don't think I was a hardcore sales rep, but it does have that reputation. So they sort of said, if you want to freelance on the side for these competitors, we're happy with that. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. So I started to do that. And then over time, that just led to becoming something full-time. So I left and started my agency. And then, as we've kind of grown, we've recruited people and sort of built out a team as well. So
that's really
it's a bit of a weird transition, but so I still work predominantly in sales for the business. And then I have a team of marketers. So I understand marketing really well, but I suppose me as an individual is more of a salesperson.
So tell us about your company then. What does it do? You just said your position in the company is more sales. Explain what Brand Active is all about.
What Brand Active does, right? So Brand Active is a digital marketing agency. So we're based in London, and what we do is we work predominantly with small businesses and actually mostly with businesses that have operated traditionally offline, mostly just because of my experience. And what we help to do is help businesses build their brands online. So that means everything from website development, content, social media, PPC, design, really anything that a brand would need to get visibility online and to generate leads is what we would do.
That's cool. So I just want to move on to your book because you've become an author now,
I have.
which is
Yeah.
which is great news. So your book, Get Online,
Yes.
you cover 6 simple steps to help people focus in on their digital marketing strategy, which makes sense because that's what Brandlective does.
Yeah.
Fantastic, great synergy there. What are these 6 steps, and why do you call it a simple process? Because I think for the people you help, it's probably seen as far from simple.
Totally. And I think one thing I noticed is working with a lot of smaller businesses and those ones that I say are traditional offline businesses, they really do struggle with digital marketing because they can't quite wrap their head around what that means. And it does seem very overwhelming. And I just found myself having the same conversations over and over and over again, trying to explain the process in which you would transition online and then the tactics that you would use in order to grow your brand online and actually generate those inbound leads. So that led to the book, so Get Online. And it's the 6 simple steps to building a digital marketing pipeline for the non-tech savvy.
Okay.
And so the examples that I give throughout the book are all traditional offline businesses. I work a lot still in the direct sales world, also in the property sector. So, construction, developers, those sorts of industries where they do predominantly operate offline. So
Yeah.
really, they do need to kind of see this in a simple way. So essentially what we did is I just broke down, the process that we use inside the agency in order to build a pipeline. And we're able to kind of identify six steps and 6 kind of key areas that we work on. We made them 6 C's so that they're kind of easy to remember.
In marketing, we love a good 6, 7, 9.
Yeah.
Number, letter, you're in marketing. Done.
Totally. So the first one is connect, and connect is really all about who are you as a business and how are you going to connect to your audience. So it's really understanding who the customer is, building out a customer avatar so you can understand their challenges, problems, what motivates them, all the sorts of issues a customer might have, to really digging deep into how you're able to connect with them. So it's sort of the customer side, but then also your own brand side in terms of what is your unique selling proposition, what makes you different in order for you to be able to connect. So that first step is really how to connect. Mm-hmm. Once we've obviously identified how to connect to a customer, the second C is create. And create is all about what type of assets need to be created in order to build a online strategy. Mm-hmm. So those are usually, we kind of cover 4 areas in that. They are written form content, so things like blogs or articles or anything written that you would read. Something visual, so that'll usually be photos or videos or something visual that people can look at. Audio, so I'm a big fan of podcasts.
Hooray.
So podcasts I think are great. Audio books, little audio snippets, people speaking, being released, and then also action items. So those are things like downloads, online people can take, quizzes. And the reason we say those sort of 4 areas in create is all consumers like to consume content in different ways. And so if you have, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I suppose I'll give you the example we use in our agency, which is if somebody wants to know about digital marketing, how do they want to learn about that? Well, we've kind of got it covered because we've got, a book that they can read. We've got blogs on our website that they can read. We've also got video content across our YouTube channels. We've got a podcast and an audio version of the book that people can listen to. And then we also have an online digital marketing test that people can take if they want to sort of self-assess where they're at with their marketing pipeline.
Okay.
So it just means that we've sort of saturated any sort of way that somebody might like to consume information. Because we all do it in different ways, right? It's like, I will happily listen to podcasts on my journey into the office, but I probably wouldn't sit at home on a Saturday morning listening to a podcast necessarily, although I might read a book. Yeah. So it's just thinking about where people are at in their day and how they like to consume information about a specific brand. So covering off those 4 assets is the create part of the pipeline.
Okay.
So the third part is captivate, and that basically is advertising. So that could be, the Google ads, the Facebook ads, even offline. So it could be magazine advertisements, the way to captivate their attention is putting it in front of your ideal consumer. And usually that revolves around some kind of advertising. To move on to the fourth step, which is capture. So C for capture. And that is your landing page, specific landing page or a pop-up form across the website, something where now that you've captivated the attention of your ideal customer, how do you capture their details in order to be able to market to them? So to basically get their email or their phone number or whatever details that you need in order to be able to market. Then it kind of goes on to the fifth C, which is my favorite, which is converse. And this is all about relationship building and development. And it's one that a lot of businesses skip. A lot of businesses really try to skim over that. They're almost like, I've got your contact details now. Now I'm just going to pitch you, which, we hate those people, right? You don't want to be sold to. You want to be nurtured. And so converse is all about nurturing and building that relationship so that there's a lot of trust, so that it's a no-brainer really for the consumer to then make a purchase decision from your business. So then the sixth step is convert. So at that point, you're able to convert once you've spent that nurturing phase, building that relationship with the customer. So sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but does that help answer the question?
That's absolutely amazing. I love the fact that your favorite one is converse. It goes with your background, and it always baffles me, because if we were willing to purchase, we'd probably use some kind of e-commerce or an email to say, I am ready to buy from you. And other than that, it's we live in a crazy world where you type in your email address to maybe get something for free, or just because you fancy seeing the e-newsletter, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you are primed to purchase. So, whoa, no.
It's so important because it's so off-putting, isn't it? It totally changes the relationship that you have with that business or that brand. So I think it's such an important phase, but I think it's a big challenge that comes up, particularly for small businesses who maybe have really minimal budgets and are trying to just get a result quickly, that they kind of squeeze that bit and try to get to it super, super fast, rather than allowing the consumer to just be nurtured and kind of go through, receive that great content, hopefully learn from it, continue to follow you online, because the nurture phase could be social media, it could be emails, it could be all sorts of things, but it really needs to be value driven. It can't be priming you for the sale. It's really going to be, how do I just give you this amazing content so that you feel like I am the best brand in the world, and that it's a no-brainer for you to then come and purchase.
Exactly. I'm preaching to the converted here. It's just overwhelm them. So overwhelm them with content, information, how-to guides, whatever it is, in as much different formats as possible. So money doesn't even come into it. It's an absolute no-brainer for them to do that.
Absolutely.
But having said that, speaking of money, you work with small businesses. So in terms of investment, to be credible online or even just visible, is there an actual cost? And if there is, how can small businesses compete with the bigger companies that have got deeper pockets?
Yeah, sure. It's such a common question. I mean, the thing is, there is a cost, right? You can spend as much as you want to spend on getting the visibility that you want online. So for those that have great big marketing budgets, it's awesome. You can go and be crazy and spend a lot of cash and get the results a little bit quicker. However, in saying that, you don't have to. I think generally, I mean, you hear people say things like you get what you pay for. The reality is, if you're not spending money on marketing or advertising, then you've got to graft for it, right? So it's just more time investment, I would say. So in the early stages of running a business, let's say a solopreneur or someone who has a really small business with just a couple of employees and doesn't really have the budget to spend even using an agency, or but even doing their own marketing and running their own ads or something. It's really just looking for opportunities of how do I attract my customer to me. So the ways that people can do this for free or for very minimal amounts is by building, I guess it's just kind of going through those same 6 steps, which is really, if you really understand your customer, you know exactly who they are, you know exactly the challenge they have, and you have the solution to help solve that problem, then the difficult part of the marketing process is just getting in front of them. So you've got to be thinking, what kind of thing can I be creating that's going to attract them to me? So, what sort of social platforms could I use to be able to push content out? Or, could I get some media or publicity? And there's plenty of free ways to do that. It could be things like approaching local newspapers to try to get a featured story. I really love Harrow. I don't know if many people would be subscribed to that, but it's Haro, Harrow, help a
Okay.
reporter out.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and it's really cool. It's totally free. You just register and choose the different industries that you're interested in or could potentially comment on. And essentially, you're becoming a source for the media. So you get alerts through every single day on email to say, we're looking to cover the story on this. Is that you? If it is, you send your pitch in. And then, ideally you get a feature. That would be great. Doesn't always
That's
happen,
great.
but one in
Yeah.
10, something like that, kind of the reality. Pitching yourself to be on other people's podcasts, all this kind of stuff. These are all things that can be done essentially for free, as in you don't have to spend money to make that happen, but it's just your time that you're investing, I think is essentially where you get to when you don't have a budget.
Yes, it's that fine balance. But one other handy resource is your website, because there's so many free resources on there covering so many different social channels.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so check that out. I'll put all the links in the show
Oh, sure. Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
Um,
I think, again, this is a lesson for anybody who's running a business that is trying to get the attention of customers and try to bring on new customers. That if you don't have the budget to spend on marketing, then create great resources that people will find. Right. So if you create, for example, the one that you just mentioned on the website, we've created all these guides on how to use all these different social media platforms. So if people are searching online, like, how do I use Instagram? Then they'll come across that resource, they'll download it, and then that opens up an opportunity for there to be a relationship there. So it's creating, value really for your customers.
yeah, again, practicing what you preach, undeniable.
Yeah. Gotta do
Speaking,
it.
yeah, definitely. Speaking of different social channels and the free resources that you've got on your site, again, the links will be in the show notes. Do you advise companies to dive into them all, just one at a time? Is there any type of method here?
Without the resources, it kind of depends where you're at because obviously everybody has a certain level of understanding of digital, right? So the resources that we have on there, to be honest, they are actually pretty entry level. So it's for
Hmm.
businesses that have never really done any kind of social media at all in the past. So they're not going to be relevant for everyone. They really suit that very entry point where people just need to understand the basics. Or the other type of person that they really suit is somebody that maybe the founder of a business or somebody who's making the decision about hiring a person that might be doing that for them internally. They might find them helpful because you might not be doing the job yourself, but having a basic understanding of how does Instagram work or how does YouTube work is going to be important if you're going to have a member of your team that are doing that for you. If you don't understand it, how do you coach them or how do you work with them to help them grow your business?
Hmm.
So I think that that's the kind of thing that they're really valuable for. In terms of do you need them all or which ones should you use, it totally depends on the business, because not all businesses will use all platforms. And it will really depend where there's a knowledge gap, I think, in what it is that you're trying to do.
The one thing, and again, going back to that time versus cost, I suppose, but the one thing that can take a lot of time once you know what social channel you want to go on, if it's multiple, if it's singular, whatever it might be, but it's creating the actual content, which you covered in the 6 steps
Yes.
in terms of create. But how can people that are time strapped create enough content to stand out and also make it engaging and useful?
Okay, so the best piece of advice I would probably give someone around this is it's doing that first part of the pipeline, which is connect. So really, really understanding what do you have on offer that's unique. I think getting super clear on that is very, very important.
Hmm.
And then on the flip side, who is the customer and what do they need? Like not just I think they need my product because of this reason. Like what is that deep challenge or issue or problem that they have that you are solving? That is the best way to make sure that the content is useful because once you've identified what that is, then all of your content you just build around that. Now, in terms of kind of like time and making sure that you can create the volume of content that you may need, there's a process that we use, which we call the content waterfall. And what that is we start with a core piece of content and then find ways to repurpose it.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an example, I might sit down with a client, and this is something you can totally do on your own. You don't need an agency to do this for you. But the way that I would do it is I sit with a client with, a video camera. You can just use an iPhone and a ring light that does the job. And I can sit them in a chair for 45 minutes and interview them. And I structure the question so that's pulling out all the value of what their business is and what they do and how they do it, and getting really deep rooted kind of value from them. They can leave and go away after 45 minutes. And then I basically have enough content there to be able to create multiple forms. So I'll take that video, I'll dice it up and release it as little 1 to 2 minute snippets. Each little video that we do, we can probably turn into a blog post as well if we've asked the right question. So we expand on that, add in facts and figures and all the juicy content. So it's a written piece of content too. That original video interview, I may be able to strip off the audio and release it as a podcast for them. Each blog post, I aim to get sort of 4 or 5 different social media posts out of it. The same blog post, I aim to get sort of 15 to 20 tweets out of every blog that we've written. So that's kind of distribution. So I think the key thing is thinking of what is a really core piece of content that I could create that's hugely valuable. So it might be that first initial video. You could also do it with a book. Anybody who's written a book, if you've got a book, that's such a great asset because you can just repurpose it so much. But it's having a great one big asset that can then be repurposed, because essentially, especially I find this with small businesses, let's say the founder, for example, might be the person who can create that core piece, but they're also the person who doesn't have the time to do the rest. So usually if they're able to create that core piece of content, they might be able to then pass that over to an assistant or a virtual assistant or a marketing person or whatever that can then repurpose that for them. But the core messages are still there. The tone of voice is still there. All the juicy, gritty stuff that you want your customers to know is still there because they're working from a really core piece of content. So, following that content waterfall process is a very good way to get as much, really rinse your content for all it's worth, like just really grab everything out of it. So yeah, that can help.
I love that idea. It's repurposing content's just amazing, and
the dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be so simple though. Like you say, it's taking audio and making it into maybe an infographic or taking that and using it in copy form. It's just, and content's everywhere. It's in a lot more places than you actually realize when you start looking for it. Yeah,
totally. And actually, I'll share with you if you want. We've actually got an infographic on all the different ways things can be repurposed, because sometimes, we kind of have fun activities in our team where we're like, right, how crazy can we get with this? Like, how much can we really get out of this? And it kind of, sometimes if you open your mind just to be just open for brainstorm and just kind of think, could I create this into an infographic? And then could I make that into some kind of moving graphic? And then could I move that into, I don't know, audio to video or video to written? Like, how many different ways can you do this? We kind of challenge ourselves sometimes just kind of for fun. And that opens up so many opportunities. So we've got, like a little graphic that can show you, 170 different ways that you can create content.
That's brilliant.
Out of something cool. Yeah.
We've spoken a lot about digital, particularly from that last question, really.
Yeah.
What about traditional marketing methods? Like, is this dead?
No, it's not. Like, I think I talk about digital a lot because obviously I own a digital marketing agency, so that makes sense for me, right? But it's not. I think it's proving, in my opinion, it's more expensive. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but often if I'm looking at campaigns for clients, actually we did this recently with a client where they had run a magazine advertisement. I think they paid £5,000 for an A4 page in a magazine.
Wow.
Which I thought was crazy. We had an equal budget of £5,000, which we ended up spending on Facebook ads. And the return that we were able to get on that was so much more significant. So it can be challenging. However, I think one thing that traditional marketing has over digital is that, to be honest, less people are doing it now. So digital is fairly saturated. If you don't have a clear message, if you're not compelling, if you don't stand out from the crowd, you can get really lost. And I think, a major advantage for traditional marketing right now is that there are less businesses doing it. So can you do something creative in the traditional sense that actually may get you a better return on investment because there's not as many businesses competing with you? I think that's so. Yeah, I don't think it's dead. I always think that things. Clients that come to us that are still doing traditional often will say, should we stop this? And I'm like, if you have the budget to do both because they complement each other. It's just leveraging what works best for your business. And again, I know I've said this a bunch of times, but it just comes back to who's the customer and where are the customer? Where do they spend time? Are they reading a magazine? Are they reading the newspaper? Are they looking at the leaflet that comes through their door? Or, are they on Facebook, Instagram, using Google? Like, it's just deciding the way that you should be doing your marketing should not be dictated by what you want. It should be dictated by what your customers are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I recently, it's back in the summer. I say recently, summer's long gone now.
Yes, sadly.
But back in the summer, I was at home and I heard the shouting outside. I thought, that's a bit strange. So I looked out the window and then I heard a bang on our front door. And then this guy was walking away. And his strategy was, he was a gardener. So in his strategy was literally to knock on every single door on the street and say, do you need any gardening doing? And if no one answered, or if somebody answered, no thanks, he just moved on to the next one, into the next one. He wasn't precious, but he was local. He knew that in the summer people haven't got time to cut the grass. So probably the quickest way for him to do it was to knock on doors.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing is, especially with an industry like that, where he's probably operating in like a very small postcode, like in terms of where he would like to be, because let's be honest, we'd all love to work, 5 minutes from where we live. But so why not? Why not just knock on doors and you have the opportunity to build a relationship with people that way, and you can leave a card or a little flyer behind or whatever. Like, I think good for him.
Yeah. I thought that, that's strange at first, but then I actually sat back and thought about it and thought, yeah, fair play.
Yeah, it's funny though, isn't it? Isn't it funny how the way that we perceive that now it's a bit strange. Weirdly, yesterday I actually had a delivery driver knocked on the door. I think he was just delivering like an Amazon parcel or something. But he knocked on the door, gave me the parcel, and then just said, "Oh, by the way, I also fix doors." I was like, "Hey, wait, what's wrong with my door? Need any help with that?" I was like, "No," but clearly he was doing something really similar, and I suddenly thought, like, my kind of initial reaction was like, "Why are you asking me about my door? Like, this is weird that you've just done this." But actually, had he left something behind, now that I think, oh, I do actually need to get this window replaced or whatever, then that's a really convenient way of me getting in contact with him. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's good.
Yeah, a bit different as well. Not everyone's going around knocking on doors, so slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely, totally.
Okay, final in-depth question before we move on to some quick fire questions. This is a bit left field, if you like. But can you talk us through the 1 Million Days initiative?
Oh yeah, so the 1 Million Days campaign that we launched. This was how long ago now? Probably coming up 2 years, I think, when we first launched it, and it runs till 2030. Essentially, what it is as a business, we decided that we wanted to have some kind of giving back, or I guess corporate social responsibility kind of element of the business, and we were trying to think about how do we do this, and we decided to align everyday things that we do in our business would lead to something good happening somewhere in the world.
Okay.
So to give you an example, when we sign a new client, we give 1 day's worth of human rights workers' wages to a human rights worker in Cambodia.
Cool.
Every time we build a website, we give 2 days of business training to women in Kenya. For every 30-day contract we complete, we give 30 days access to clean drinking water. So we just thought if we could, they're little minimal, tiny little impacts that we make that, quite frankly, on a little day-to-day basis don't add up to a lot of money, but can have quite a significant impact. And we've aligned those with the 2030 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So the 17 goals that the UN are trying to achieve by 2030. Big goals, ending poverty and clean water and all this kind of thing is, it's quite significant, very, very ambitious. And we liked the idea of trying to be involved with that. And so we launched our campaign specific to us, which is called 1 million days. And the goal is, as an agency, we will give 1 million days of access to clean water, housing, education, or business training by 2030.
That's great. Because you hear of these initiatives, sometimes they feel a bit hollow, but
Yeah, sure.
also they're usually a sponsorship where it can be short lived. Whereas you've kind of nailed your colours to the mast with 1 million days, haven't you?
It's a lot, right? Like I thought, oh my God, when we first announced it, I was like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of time. But no, it's good to have big goals, So I think we're just short of 2 years into it, and I think we've just hit over 100,000 days. So if you think we've got another 10 years basically to achieve 900,000. So we're slightly behind schedule at the moment, but it just gives us an opportunity to push, and the idea is that obviously the business will grow ideally significantly by 2030, that we should quite easily kind of hit that target. And it's an amazing kind of initiative to have running in the business, because it's really opened up for me how important it's become. A really big part of our culture, and actually the team love it. They feel connected to it. They feel like they're doing something bigger than just their day-to-day tasks. Like if we have a bit of a pain in the bum client, we can say it's okay, because this woman in Kenya is going to receive 2 days worth of business training for completing this project. So it's kind of a nice little reminder that the things that we're doing every day are actually helping to achieve something a lot bigger than us, and that's a really nice feeling.
Well, that's great. Just because it's great doesn't mean you're getting out of these quick fire questions, though, unfortunately. Okay. So are you ready for these?
Okay, I think I am, yeah.
Great. Name one must-read business book.
Business book. 24 Assets by Daniel Priestley.
What was the last thing you Googled?
The last thing I Googled was a client, actually. So a client's name. I was doing a little bit of research on her personal brand.
What is your most used app at the moment?
I think it's Instagram.
Okay.
I know, boring, right?
A lot of people go for a social chat. And
and
really,
I'd love to say that it's not, but unfortunately I think it is.
Yeah, I know, but in your line of work, you kind of had to say a social channel, really.
Totally. It was all business related, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No cats in hats or anything like that, of course. No.
Yeah.
What would be your one tip for people who are studying?
Oh, for people who are studying, keep going. Stay focused.
Sure.
I think that would be my advice. Yep.
Okay. And final question. If you could tell your 10-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
My 10-year-old self. I think I would tell my 10-year-old self to have a bit more fun. Like, I think I was a bit boring as a 10-year-old. And a bit stressed and a bit worried about things all the time. So I think I'd probably tell myself to just have a bit more fun and just remember that you're just 10.
You're just 10. I like that. I really like that. Stacey, if people want to find more out about you, the business, the 1 Million Days initiative, because it's super cool, where should they go?
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Stacey Kehoe, Kehoe, or visit Brandlective website, which is www.brandlective.com. And all the information about all of our initiatives and all our resources and everything can be found on there. And there's little pop-ups that remind you of everything, so you can't really get too lost. But yeah, I would love that. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem, Stacey. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to go through your 6 steps, for talking about all the free resources you provide, the 1 Million Days initiative. It's been fantastic chat. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been so fun. So I really appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
Thanks once again, Stacey, for joining us. An absolute pleasure. I just want to cover a couple of takeaways that I got from that great chat. And the first one is that I love the fact that Stacey has kept things simple with her 6 C's game changer strategy. And I suggest that you start to utilise these within your business. These 6 C's were connect, create, captivate, capture, converse, and finally convert, that all-important conversion. Also, don't forget the content waterfall, which can really help within the 6C's game changer strategy, to be honest, as this could be a game changer in itself. Start with a singular piece of content and then just start to repurpose it. You'd be amazed how far this will stretch, and the engagement that you'll get from it will astound you. And finally, traditional marketing is not dead, far from it. It can be difficult, but it's always worth throwing it out there. The more we focus on digital, the more gaps will appear in traditional channels, and they are far, far from done and dusted. But remember, don't be dull or dry. Be creative. Stand out, and most of all, enjoy the process of figuring it all out. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there, and hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.